Well, good evening. Uh, First of all, I'm grateful to be here and have this opportunity to do what God has given me to do. Uh, Living a long life of loneliness and emptiness and fear, I always asked God what He wanted me to do. Over the years, He showed me just what He wanted me to do, and that's to get up in front of people, which I would have never ever done in my lifetime, and tell my story and show how He has been gracious to me and to my family, and to bring me to a place where there's so many people that are full of love and understanding and hurting as well. So let me get started with my testimony. It says, hello, I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, who has forgiven my sins and promises to walk with me throughout my recovery journey and beyond. My name is Lannie. I was born in May of 1949. So yes, I am kind of old. I would like to start with Psalms 107, 13 through 14. They cried to the Lord in their troubles, and He rescued them. He led them from the darkness and the shadow of death and snapped their chains. Okay, my sexual and abusive addictions were broken in 1984 when I faced that my life was out of control. It was at this moment, with an overwhelming fear of what could happen if I was not stopped, that I called out to God to please stop me from what I was doing, because I could not do it myself. This He graciously did for me, and as a result, this spared my family from any more of my destructive ways. Although my family was now free of my self-centered and angry and abusive ways, the emotional damage that I had caused in their lives would take many years to heal, and the effect could last a lifetime. Facing both what I had been hiding and my acting out in order to deal with a life that I was needing but could not find, and trying to overcome the sinful one that I had created, left me holding on to a great deal of depression, low self-esteem, low self-worth, self-hate, anger, remorse, shame, and a deep sorrow that I lived with almost daily. These negative feelings have been in big control of my life since around the age of 10 to now 70, when I finally came to celebrate recovery, until I was shown a path to recover by God. I was so tired of living with my past and was now at the point in my life that I didn't care if I dropped dead where I stood. I'd even expressed this to my doctor and to my wife. So I needed to find peace and rest from my own emotional and mental torment. To bring my struggles to a healing place, God showed me that He was still with me, in control of my life, and had a big plan for me. In Matthew 11, 28 through 30, God says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Several years after I had retired, my wife and I moved back to Cottage Grove, Oregon, where we finally found a church that God wanted us to attend, the Cottage Grove Chapel in Cottage Grove, Calvary Chapel. He was right on, imagine that. It's good. Sometime later, this led me to attend Celebrate Recovery, where I'm now a member of a forever family. Now, in my effort to sort out and understand my damaged and abusive life, I will put together what I have discovered about myself, using the step studies to help, into something that will help me understand where my life took a wrong turn. Thinking back to around 9 years old, I was already suffering from a life of low self-esteem and lack of confidence from earlier childhood feelings in my life. Because I so wanted to feel important and to be happy, I joined our school basketball team. Now, I lived in a small town, so our team was made up of boys from the 4th grade to the 8th grade. I remember being so excited at being able to play basketball. and to get a shirt that had a number. Well, this was one of my needy life's first crushing letdowns. Everyone was getting shirts with numbers on them. I was given a shirt that had not only 1 0, it had 2 zeros. I felt so broken and sad. Now for me, this was a devastating letdown. You see, my self-esteem was so now crushed even more. I understand that to many people, this may seem funny, but when you're a child looking to be somebody with a real number, all I saw was that I wasn't even good enough to feel special. No numbers, just worthless zeros. Why? I felt just like that skinny boy I'd seen in comic books. I was laying down getting sand kicked in his face by a big, strong bully. I wanted to be big and muscular like that bad guy. Mighty Mouse and Popeye were my heroes then. They were strong and they always won. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted to be strong too. I also tried playing Little League baseball. Pitchers couldn't pitch to me in my strike zone, so I was always walked or struck out. Because of desperation to hit the ball, I'd just swing. Boy, I hated being short. I really hated it. My dad, who was the coach, was going to make me a better player, though. So he would make me sit there with my fielder's glove while he threw that hard ball as hard as he could. You see, after all, he was a minor league ball player. When I complained about my hand hurting, he would just tell me to shut up and catch the ball. Maybe I was just too weak, but I still remember how red my hand was and how it really hurt. So much for enjoying baseball anymore. Bad memories, yes, but my younger life up to this point had been a mostly fun one. I was a free and full of life kid, leaving early mornings until near dark to play, just like I really was back in the 1950s. Hunting game birds on my own at 8 years old, swimming all day in the river, fishing, riding our bikes, or just walking 5 miles up into the mountains to a lake for fun. We were not worried about bad people back then. Everybody knew us and who our parents were. I had also lived a life of more excitement. My dad was a rodeo clown and a bullfighter who never gave up even when he was injured. What I took away from this was a belief and applied system of my own. Even when you're hurt, if you can move, then you can work. Now back to the fun parts of my life. Because of Dad's profession, we had many trained animals. A trained mule, a trained dog, 2 chimpanzees, one of which was Cheetah from the Tarzan movies, pony rides, horses, and a typical barnyard collection. What a great life for a young boy, but something was still missing. My dad didn't pay much attention to me, except to holler at me to watch what the hell I was doing, or to say, damn it, pay attention. Sorry for the language. I realized he was watching out for my safety around animals, but why did he always have to holler at me? Where was the good job? It's okay, try again. Here, let me show you how to do it. Be careful. Just do your best. Oh, I did learn things that I could and would need in my life, and I am thankful for those lessons and abilities. I just didn't need to feel worthless and like a failure all the time. My parents, being married at 15 years old, the first time believed that loving their children was giving you a home to live in, food to eat, clothes to wear. Now I lost my place. There we go. Gifts, but not hugs. No kisses, no I love you, or encouragement. Just do what I say, or you're going to get spanked. I remember that leather belt and a few butt warmings that I know I deserved. Oh, I wasn't always a good little boy. I was mischievous too. That is why it took more of the belt reminders to bring me to that understanding of right and wrong that little boys seem to ignore to be part of my life's lessons. Don't get me wrong, I received good things growing up, especially from my mother. I was her only son. Mom did many things to make my life happy, allowing me to scuba dive, to drive her car, to always being there to support me in my sports and more. Now, as far as I can remember, it was around the ages of 9 to 10-year-olds that my life began to really fall apart and more trauma entered. I lost my first grandfather in a logging accident and experienced my first open casket funeral. Very disturbing memories from that viewing still come up into my life. Then in less than a year, my second and favorite grandfather passed away. I was his fishing buddy, spending many hours fishing off the large rocks in Brookings, Oregon, was our favorite thing to do. I was now very devastated by another loss. Then came the biggest trauma in my young life. While I was visiting my grandmother, shortly after my grandfather had passed away, I received a phone call from my mother telling me that she and my sisters had left my dad and they were moving to California. I was so scared, confused, and sad. I can still remember the words that I said to my mother. Crying, I asked, "But what about me, Mom? What about me?" So her answer was that she could come and get me, or I could stay with my father. Looking back and questioning my decision to stay with my dad is a shock, but I felt sorry for him being alone, so I chose to stay. Now here was yet another crushing point. He just took me to my aunt's and left me there for the next 2 years. All these traumatic times happened within a period of 1.5 years. I have drawn a blank of my leaving my grandmother in Brookings and ending up in Madras, Oregon. No memories of when we left or the drive to my aunt's. My life was broken. I felt abandoned, afraid, and sad. No more family. Everyone that made up my life was now gone. This is when my life took a turn into a dark world of acting out and sexual wrongs, trying to escape my sadness. Turning to experiences from my small town life of sexual games and experimenting to deal with the traumas that I didn't know how to handle, I now fell into a trap that I would live in until I was 34. Using secrets, lies, manipulation, mask wearing to hide what I was doing had now become an addiction. After 2 years of separation, my family had reunited again, but my addiction continued. At times, pornography was a part of my life as well. As these actions continued to grow in my life, I faced yet another hurtful event. In my teenage years, around 15, I caught my dad cheating on my mom. I now suffered yet another blocked memory of events, you see. I was sent to stay with my older sister for a while. Why? I learned later in my life that I was threatening to kill my dad for what he had done. Mom figured I needed a cooling off period for me, which really needed. Here I experienced my first dealings with alcohol. Getting so drunk and sick, suffering dry heaves, my brother-in-law set me outside in the snow, wearing only my underwear, rubbing snow all over my chest and back. And then I sweat the night away inside an Army goose-down sleeping bag. Just more crap in my life. I hated my life, I hated who I was, and life sucked. As I search through my life, I see that one of the hardest things for me to overcome was the thought of never being good enough or strong enough for my dad. Although I had managed to participate in the state gymnastics championships 3 years in a row, he never attended any of my high school or state events. No acknowledgement of any of my accomplishments. I was still not good enough. Later in my life, as I was beginning to sort out and understand more, I was given some more disturbing news when I was 68 years old. The man I called Dad was forced to adopt me as part of my 19-year-old mother's agreement to remarry him. I was never able to meet my real father, who I discovered lived a mere 18 miles away, Springfield. My real father was sworn to never try to find me by my mother for fear of damaging the family name and hurting me. I was told by my real father's wife that he had wondered if I would ever search for him. He died 2 years before I was told of his existence. Maybe, just maybe, this could be why the one I called Dad had a lack of much interest in me. Oh, I've had good times in my life for sure. Meeting my future wife, being one of the best gifts God introduced into my life while in high school, and she's here with me tonight. He knew that she would be my earthly rock later in my life, and she was and still is as we approach in September of 59 years together. And I love her so much. She's my rock. God also knew that I was in trouble and that I was heading into and going to cause much sorrow in my future. But he would be there to pick me up and save both myself and my family. I had brought so much suffering and destruction into my life and into my family's lives. My addiction was destroying my life. And with my low self-esteem, hating myself and feeling worthless, I was robbing my family of their right to live happy lives. I robbed them of their trust in me, their protection from my abusive behaviors, a truly dedicated husband and father, plus more. For myself, I lost my dignity, and now I lost my family again. My wife later told me how she would watch the clock, wondering what mood would I be in when I got home. Would I be happy? Would I be mad? Blaming, causing them to deal with the uncertainness. I also learned from my children how they had developed a fear of me when they witnessed my hitting a wall and breaking my hand, along with other displays of anger, such as throwing things or breaking stuff when I was mad. This was the lifestyle that I lived, angry. Described myself as a mini Mount St. Helens, quiet and calm until I became upset and then I'd explode. Blaming others because of my anger. This caused my loved ones more emotional suffering because I didn't know how to face or how to deal with my life. Now the important thing that ever came out of my rotten life was God. Stopping me and his walking beside my family as we entered 2 years of separation and counseling to rebuild our broken family. The journey was not an easy one. Find the right page here. There we go. The journey was not an easy one. My wife was left alone to raise 2 teenagers. I lived by myself, not being allowed to have contact of any kind with my children, and we were all left to face so many fears. But I was determined to make it through the damage I had caused and to regain my family. Ironically, I had once again lost those I loved, and this time it was my fault. I took from them everything that I had sought in my own life to find happiness, leaving them to now suffer the same needs in their lives. Life did get bitter for around 16 years, though, after We were once again living as a complete family until sorrows came again in 2002 when our oldest daughter passed away at the age of 33. This was a crushing and painful blow for us as a family, and for me the deepest pain and ripping away of my heart that I'd ever experienced. This was just the beginning of blows to come. Just months after our daughter's death, we had a fire at our rental home in which our daughters had lived while raising their families, causing more extensive damage. Then in 2002 or 6, my nephew passed away in January, as well as my wife's mother passing away in April, my mother passing away in June, and to finish off the year, my wife's father passed away in October. I'd suffered enough of life sorrows again. With all the losses and the overload of my job, fearing a judgment from people, and my past haunting me, I broke down. I was now at that point, as I mentioned earlier, wishing for death to free me and give me peace. I was so tired. Now, in the midst of all these events, God was there to comfort all of us. He showed that He was not done with me yet. All of my life, He has been with me, walking beside me, protecting me, and waiting for me to reach out to Him as I had done earlier in my life of addictions. Having no one here on earth to talk to about my fears and sorrows, He set me on my next journey. In Philippians 4:13 it says, I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. So here I am, a member of a Celebrate Recovery Forever family, discovering that I am worthy and that God has a use for my past, my present, and my future. Not only is He healing me, but He uses my life as an example, as an encourager, and as a leader. These discoveries and my healings were because I chose to enroll in a step study for help with my life's questions. And of course, God's love and forgiveness of my sins encouraged this process. Upon entering my first step study, I found myself in an uneasy situation, not knowing just how to answer so many questions about my life. However, because of the support and the guidance and the commitment from my sponsor, who was a very important part of this learning, I was able to begin to search and find answers to help me in sorting out my life and to find hope for a new and a better one. By the time I had finished my second step study, my life was more understandable and my life-changing goals were on a positive path. Now, as a leader in my third study, I can only praise the growth that comes from these studies. I'm finding more missing and hidden parts of my life, bringing me healing and closer to God. As a result, I have accepted that I am not God, that I'm powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing, and that my life is unmanageable. Next, in Principle 2, which is my favorite, states that I believe that God exists, that I matter to Him, and that He has the power to help me recover. This step gives me hope and encouragement, knowing that God has such love for me. Plus, I consciously choose to commit all my life and will to Christ's care and control, and I'm still struggling with that one. I will openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. I yield myself to God to be used to bring the good news to others, both by my example and by my words. I will also follow the other steps in this program. Another important part of my life is knowing that it is both okay and healing for a man to express his inward pains and his sorrows and to shed tears. We are human, and our sufferings are real. Shedding tears is not a sign of weakness, shamefulness, nor wrong. Remember, Jesus also wept. God never wastes any hurts. In closing, I'd like to say that I am a much happier and caring person now, finding greater peace in my life and a strong desire to help others. I now understand the dream that kept occurring several years ago and haunted me. It was a dream about me hanging onto a rope, slipping closer and closer into the darkness. I would wake up scared. Then in my last dream, there was a knot that stopped me from slipping further into that dark place. I now know what it meant and who tied that knot that saved me. It was Jesus Christ. The recovery is possible, but it takes commitment and work to make it happen. God waited for me with open arms, and He is waiting for you as well. I thank you for listening to my life journey and my path to healing. Thank you. Thank you.